Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into India's air pollution crisis. We're going to unmask the surprising sources and, honestly, the staggering costs of what is truly an invisible killer.
Okay, let's just start with the human cost, because these numbers, they're not just numbers. They represent a full-blown public health emergency. Just in 2021, we're talking about 2.1 million deaths in India, linked directly to the air people are breathing. And if that last number didn't hit you, this one will. This isn't some abstract annual statistic. We're talking about a daily tragedy on a massive scale. Every single day, 464 children under the age of 5 die from air pollution-related causes. It's just heartbreaking, and it shows you who's really paying the price here, the most vulnerable.
So you gotta ask, right? How does something as simple as breathing the air around you turn into one of the country's biggest health threats? Let's really dive into that.
Now, this is what's absolutely fascinating and terrifying. We tend to think of air pollution as, causing a cough or maybe asthma. But look at this. It's a primary driver of India's deadliest non-communicable diseases. We're talking 70% of COPD deaths, 41% of strokes, 40% of heart disease deaths, even a fifth of type 2 diabetes deaths. It's not just attacking the lungs, it's a full-body assault.
Okay, so if we're gonna solve a problem this huge, we first have to understand where it's coming from. And trust me, the answer is way more complex than you probably think.
So, when we think of air pollution, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's traffic-choked highways and factory smokestacks, right? And yeah, for sure, they are a big part of the problem. Road dust, industry, transport, they're all significant contributors.
But is that the whole story?
Well, not by a long shot. Some really recent scientific research that's been digging deep into the chemical makeup of the air, it's revealed this massive, often completely overlooked culprit.
So here's the crucial point. You've got these two faces of pollution. On one side, you have the urban emissions, the traffic, the industry. But on the other side, you have this gigantic piece of the puzzle called biomass burning. And that's everything from vast agricultural fields being set on fire to individual household cook stoves that burn wood and dung.
And this chart really just illustrates the scale of it. I mean, look at Kanpur. 2/3, 66% of the organic pollution in the air comes from burning biomass. Even in a massive city like Delhi, it's still 35%. This highlights its immense and frankly often underestimated impact.
All right, let's get into the science of the smog a little bit. What are we actually breathing in, and what makes it so incredibly dangerous?
Okay, so the main villain in our story is this nasty little particle called PM 2.5. Now, to give you an idea of how small these are, they're about 30 times smaller than a single human hair. We're talking microscopic.
And that tiny size is exactly why it's so deadly. These things are basically microscopic invaders. They're so small they can bypass your lungs' natural defenses and get straight into your bloodstream. And from there, they can cause damage literally anywhere in your body. And it turns out a huge fraction of all this PM 2.5 pollution is made up of something called organic aerosols. Now, you can think of these as the key chemical signature, like a fingerprint that points directly back to biomass burning as the source.
And here's something that might surprise you. This isn't just an outdoor issue. Think about it. We spend something like 90% of our time indoors. And the air inside our homes, our offices, it's directly impacted by what's happening outside. Those pollutants, they come right in.
So that's the problem. It's big, it's complex. What can we actually do about it? Well, the solutions have to be tackled on multiple fronts, all the way from our homes to our farms.
So let's start inside our buildings. Better ventilation is absolutely key. But it presents this classic trade-off. You can open a window for natural ventilation, which is great and energy efficient, but what if the air outside is toxic? The alternative is mechanical ventilation that can filter the air, but that costs more and uses more energy. It's a real dilemma.
Now, at the household level, especially when we're talking about cooking, the goal is pretty clear. We've got to systematically replace the burning of wood, dung, and other biomass with cleaner, more efficient energy sources like LPG and electricity. The trick, of course, is making sure these alternatives are actually accessible and affordable for everyone.
And then there's the massive problem of crop burning. The strategy here is a mix of things. First, you've got to promote smarter technology. Things like subsidizing machinery that lets farmers plant new crops without having to burn the old stubble. Second, you create economic incentives, right? Encourage using that straw as fertilizer or animal feed. And third,
You have to build up the infrastructure to collect all that straw so it can be used for things like energy production. It's a big, coordinated effort.
Which brings us to probably the most important takeaway from all of this research. Pollution doesn't respect borders. It doesn't care if it's crossing from one city to another or from one state to another.
So what this really means is that a city's air quality is not just its own problem to solve. A perfect example is Delhi. The city's most severe pollution events are heavily influenced by agricultural fires and residential emissions that are transported from hundreds of kilometers upwind. It's all part of one connected system, a single airshed.
And this is the direct conclusion from the scientists studying this. They say, and I'm quoting here, that we need coordinated air pollution mitigation strategies that extend beyond urban centers to a regional scale. In other words, city-by-city solutions just aren't going to cut it. It has to be bigger.
And that leaves us with a final and maybe a little provocative thought. If pollution has no borders, then where does our responsibility end? How do we solve a problem that we all contribute to and we all suffer from together?